My name is Tim Dalton, and I'm the minister at Gloucester Evangelical Presbyterian Church. Paul writes in his letter, when he starts his letter to the Philippians, that when he thinks of the Philippians, he prays for them with joy because of their partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And so we're just hugely thankful, first of all, for your partnership in the gospel. Well done for coming over. Somebody, well done for coming over again and again and again. So some faces I've seen a few times, and we're really hugely thankful for that. We're thankful for your prayers and whichever churches you're financing and praying for. We all benefit. So we're hugely thankful for that. So I want to talk to you about Gloucester. First, I'm going to say a little bit about just the city of Gloucester, so you get your bearings. And then about the church, what the Lord has been doing. And then something about just our need, or our need for partnership. So Gloucester, let's find it. That's the cathedral. We've not managed to buy that yet. The thing you can say about the Anglicans is that they have nice buildings. This is Gloucester. The map is not up to date. This is a somewhat old map for Gloucester. It's a historic city. It was established by the Romans at the most southerly crossing point into Wales. Basically, Gloucester exists to keep out the Welsh. Okay? And we've tried very hard, but they just keep slipping through our defences. So it's an ancient city. Andy, you've heard about telling you about that modern place, Oxford, with some of those recently built buildings. If you want an old city, you've got to come to Gloucester. This is the burial place of ancient kings, Edward II, and then you go way back to the 8th century or 7th century. There's an Anglo-Saxon king buried there. It's also, it's been a great centre over the years for Christian mission and Christian education. So from the preacher monks of the 12th century and the 13th century to Wycliffe, who was born near Gloucester, and so the work of Bible translation, to John Hooper in the Reformation. There's a little picture of John Hooper on your sheets being burned at the stake. He was burned at the stake in Gloucester. To George Whitefield of the Great Awakening. He was at school in Gloucester, at the Crypt School. He was educated there. One of the members of the congregation went to that school, was a member of Whitfield House until the school was ashamed of Whitfield and that sort of post-colonial guilt, and they've changed the name. So we're trying to eradicate. Where you can go and you can see his pulpit. So we have Whitfield, and he had this partnership, didn't we, in the States. He travelled over, I think, 7 times across the Atlantic. I like to think of him as the Andy Young of the 18th century. Back and forth. Also Gloucester, you might not know this, but the man who wrote the tune to the Star-Spangled Banner came from Gloucester. Did you know that? Came from Gloucester. It was the centre of the Great Awakening, or Robert Raikes, the Sunday school movement. So it was the centre, historically, of Christian mission and education. But it's fallen on hard times in many ways. It was badly bombed in the Second World War. And I think one of the most sensible things are observations that our King Charles III, has made, is that the architects of the 60s did much more damage than the Luftwaffe. So it's been sort of rebuilt with this brutalist architecture. And so you come to Gloucester, you'll see post-war decline, you will see kind of cultural decay in some ways. And so there is a great a great need there. Now, we are, there we are, you could have done that slide. So it's a needy city, but there is redevelopment and the university and the docks, but there's a great need because many churches are shutting. Quite a few mosques are opening, actually. As a port city, Gloucester's an inland port, so there's a very diverse population. It has been for many, many years. So it's a diverse population. It's a needy city. It's more kind of blue collar than Cheltenham, where Andy ministered, was sort of the slightly posher, nicer bit. Gloucester, less expensive. So the partnership here. So I came down. I was a minister with the International Presbyterian Church. I know you're going to head up to Leeds tomorrow, so I know those characters there. We love them most of the time, and we pray for them. So send my greetings to Jonty. So I was a minister with the IPC and came down really to plant with the IPC. I'd heard about EPCEW and I wasn't too sure, but actually we are in EPCEW country, so it quickly became apparent that it made much more sense to transfer my credentials across to EPCEW and to get to know the fine men and women of EPCEW. So we planted in 2020 during lockdown. There's another minister who was the church planting minister then, is Michael Cochran, who's an American who's still my co-pastor. So we started really without a large core group. We had a handful of intrepid families and individuals, and in some ways it's a different context from Oxford. I hear it's quite encouraging for me to hear Andy Young's cash flow problems. So our overhead on a Sunday morning, we meet in a farmers club. And after we've worshipped, and there's now between 40 and 50 of us, we've got 30 members, 40 and 50 people worshipping on the Lord's Day. I go out to the bar, I say, hello, Terry, and I pay my 30 quid. And Terry, if I have any engagement, he reminds me now, he says things like, oh, Tim, you having a Good Friday service this year? And he sort of acts as my PA and writes it in. So we have low overheads, and we've got room to grow, I think, for a couple of years. Well, see what the Lord gives, but in our current setup. So we parted really with partnership from another church. We had a family from Cheltenham, or two families from different churches in Cheltenham, and we are sort of fourth prayers in our local network. And really, we couldn't exist without the partnership and support. So on our session, we've got two guys from the church in Cheltenham as well, supporting and helping us, and we share resources for things like youth work. So we're well supported, well resourced. So our vision really is to see Gloucester recaptured as a missionary sending city. We want to see the gospel take root again in this great city. There's a desperate need. How we're doing this, what we do, we simply, morning and evening, worship on the Lord's Day, ordinary means of grace. We preach the gospel, we pray, we minister, we share the Lord's Supper, we baptize. We've seen the Lord at work, drawing people to his word, drawing them back to his word. We've mentioned young men and the choir revival. We've seen that. I baptized a guy a couple of years back who found us through watching stuff on YouTube, and then he just turned up at our church. Another guy about a month ago found us. He was recommended to us by ChatGPT, and he's an agnostic, but he turned up. And last night he sort of gate crashed a Bible study that I was doing with some of the other guys, and he said, "Oh, what's this?" I said, "Well, come along." And so last night there were 5 of us. We were looking at Philippians together, and this is a sort of the whole ministry here. I'd started by mistake. It started as a membership class for a guy who couldn't make the membership classes, and then it went so well that I started to add other people, and suddenly we've kind of got these young guys who are hungry for the word. So we sit around the kitchen table, I feed them, and God is doing these wonderful things. So one of the things we also do, I can't claim to have the Gareth Dix effect, I think, but we do go out onto the streets of Gloucester We preach the good news. We share the gospel. I have a pile of Bibles, and I say, would you like a Bible? It's about Jesus. And then I'll start engaging people in conversation. It's amazing who you get to meet with. And it's wonderful being in Gloucester, because you think for centuries the gospel has gone out here. And so you stand with all that history behind you, preaching the gospel. But one of the things that does is just drives us to our knees, because partly you see the depth of ignorance that there is, and just it's easy as a minister to go along with kind of master's level theological questions in your head, and then you talk to people on the street and you see where they're coming from. So it shows you the depth of the need and just drives us to our need in prayer that the Lord would send out workers to his harvest field. Because we're a tiny group in a city of 130,000 people in a land where there's such deep and desperate need. And so we pray Lord's Day by Lord's Day that the Lord would send out workers to his harvest field. So we're enormously thankful. On the back there are some of our costs. So we've got a target to raise $12,500 a year for Tom. That's for 4 years. We've also got a gap of our just in terms of our running costs of the church. And so, just be delighted we're looking for partners to work with us in the short term, but also in the long term, just to be developing relationships. It's lovely to get to know folks and come over and see what's happening on your stateside as well. So when you get back and you come with this great sheaf of papers to your missions committee, and 3 weeks later or whenever, and there's a pile of them and you're sifting through them, and I don't know quite how that all works. But just remember Gloucester, okay? It gave you the Bible, the Great Awakening, okay? And your national anthem. Consider all that Gloucester has done for you. What are you going to do for Gloucester? Thank you.